What up, everybody? Raising Kanan Season 3 began just a few hours from where Season 2 left off, with Rock's entire operation being shot up by the Italian Mafia, in addition to bulletproof records and Rock's house, resulting in Rock getting shot in the shoulder. But as Unique and Rock were walking outside, Howard and Kanan were pulling up. And it was at this time when Howard and Rock came up with a plan to pin everything on Crown Camacho. When Rock was questioned at the hospital, that was her story, and Howard even walked in to confirm that Crown was dirty. It was around this same time when Detective Shannon Burke came storming into the hospital, telling the captain that whatever happened that night, that she's sure that Howard was in the middle of it somehow, only to find out that she had been suspended. Then at the end of episode 1, Howard met up with Burke to talk to her and find out everything she knew, only to be told that he had Sam killed and that she knew Rock was his CI back in the day and Kanan was his son. Then Howard smoked Burke and made it look like a suicide. Then as Howard thought everything was all good and everyone was in the clear, the feds moved a task force into his precinct investigating what really happened that night and why there were so many dead Italians. But Howard continued to point the feds in Crown's direction. Then in episode 6, Agent Tanner called Howard in to ask him if he felt like Unique might have had something to do with the operation at the projects. But Howard told Tanner that he didn't think Unique was involved, only to find out that Tanner believed the Crown Camacho lead to be nothing but a red herring. A red herring is defined as something intended to divert attention from the real problem or matter at hand, a misleading clue. And that is exactly what Crown is being used as, a red herring. This caused Howard to then talk to his captain about getting Ogden's job in narcotics so he could join the task force. Then at the end of episode 6 and the beginning of episode 7, we see Tanner now questioning Howard about Marvin, who is a possible suspect. They were able to connect Marvin to the Italians through Sal's son Marco being hired to smoke Tony Deep, and Tony Deep being the CI against Marvin. And unlike what he did with Unique, Howard went on to tell Tanner that Marvin being involved is not beyond the realm of possibility. Then at the end of episode 7, Howard received the good news that he basically got the job with Queen's Narcotic, meaning he was going to be able to join the task force. But he had to jump through one more hoop. The feds had to run an advanced background check on Detective Howard. And during this scene, we get a clue that things are about to get ugly for Detective Howard. The captain went on jokingly to say, as long as they don't talk to any of Howard's ex-girlfriends, he should be okay. Now let's not forget who Howard's ex-girlfriend in a type of way actually is. None other than Raquel Thomas herself, who is actually Howard's baby mama, who he got pregnant as a grown man when she was only 16 years old. And in addition to that, Rock spent 1974 to 1976 as Howard's CI. So it's already believed that Rock used Howard to take out Def Con and got him locked up where he was later killed. But there is also the question, did Rock have something to do with Marvin having to do a bid and High Post being killed for snitching? Keep in mind that Marvin claims that he was set up and that's why he had to do that bid, and that High Post got burnt to death for snitching. But also keep in mind when Panessa went to confront Rock, she said Rock had something to do with High Post's death. And we can also ask the question, did Rock have something to do with Ronnie getting locked up also? And that's why Ronnie hates Rock the way he does. Because we already saw from season 1, Rock snitched on Unique shipment and framed Unique for shooting Detective Howard in the season finale. So we don't actually know how deep this background check is going to go, but they will at least know that Howard spent some time as an undercover. And if Burke was able to connect the dots between Howard and Rock, I'm sure the feds will also. But like I mentioned earlier, that when Tanner mentioned Marvin to Howard, Howard didn't try to protect Marvin. Then when Howard went to talk to Rock about Lou running his mouth, she asked Marvin if there was any more suspects. And Howard didn't tell Rock that the feds were looking into Marvin. And obviously if the feds are looking into Marvin, they got to be looking into Rock also, considering that she is his sister. Her name was on the studio and not Marvin's. And Rock's house was shot up that night and not Marvin's. Maybe it's after Tanner called Crown a red herring, Howard might be thinking he needs to play things cool for a minute or something. But this background check is only the beginning of Howard's problems. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, how Howard smoked Burke and made it look like she killed herself. This is the exact same way that Rock killed Scrappy. And since Scrappy's mother Chantel has been showing up at the precinct demanding that they open up a case. And when Tanner was talking to Howard about Marvin, this was when Howard saw Chantel in the hallway, only to tell Tanner that he should talk to Payne. But when Tanner said it looks like Payne is busy, Howard straight up lied to Tanner and said that that's just some neighborhood broad always complaining about parking tickets. Only for Chantel to turn around and get smoked by Lou at the end of the episode. So now that is 4 bodies connected to Howard: Chantel, Scrappy, Burke, and Sam. So if Tanner were to simply ask Payne what Chantel was there talking about, he would already know that Howard was lying. Then for Chantel to end up dead the same night, the next night, or whenever it happened would only make the feds more suspicious, as well as giving validity to what Chantel had been saying all along. Then you add the fact that Garcia told Howard that she was Payne's CI, and Garcia knew that Sam was running his mouth also, only to end up dead. Garcia was also there when Burke was accusing Howard in front of everybody. And if you're paying attention to when they show Garcia at Burke's funeral when Howard was speaking, I think he's starting to figure out that Howard is dirty. And if all this wasn't enough problems for Howard, episode 7 brought Captain Burke, Shannon's father, back into the storyline, as he showed up to the precinct to pick up the remainder of Shannon's belongings and paperwork. Then at the end of the episode, he met up with Adina and asked her about Shannon being obsessed with Howard, only for Adina to tell him that she's not going anywhere near Howard, and she got up and left. But during this conversation, Adina mentioned a girl from the Upper East Side overdosing and Shannon getting dragged into it. Keep in mind who also got her dragged into that. Detective Howard showed up at Mr. Bingham's house and convinced him that Nicole got the bag crack from Detective Burke. Also keep in mind that Shannon had done another cop a favor to be able to get Howard's undercover files, and that she had spent night after night building up her own private investigation on Howard, trying to put the pieces together. So there's no telling the extent of that paperwork that Captain Burke will end up finding on Howard, and possibly Burke even left something behind saying that she was going to meet up with Howard on the same night that she was killed. And one more thing to take into consideration. If the feds were to reopen these cases and look into Howard, if they were to test those guns used on Scrappy and Burke, neither one of their fingerprints are going to be on those guns. So that alone would be enough to know that they were both set up by someone that they trusted. And there you have it. Will Howard's dark secrets be revealed? Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.